What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the OBR Prospect Spotlight here on the OBR Streaming Network. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Jacob down at Roachism 13. You can find Mr. Casey Kinnamon over next beside me. And we're here this week to talk about the Senior Bowl, one of my favorite times of the year. And Jim Nagy always says the executive, the runner of the Senior Bowl down there. He always says the draft starts in Mobile, and I always feel that it truly, it's like you got weird draft guys like me that are hanging around, and then everybody comes together to care about the draft once the Senior Bowl happens. If you're checking us out on YouTube, please make sure you hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up. We appreciate you very much. YouTube has been exploding for the OBR, and so is my draft content on the written side of things. So I just wanted to heartfelt thanks to all of you that are tuning in. I really appreciate the heck out of all of you guys. So Casey, how you? We're recording this on Friday afternoon. So how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. Like I'm one of those guys that start like the draft truly does start in Mobile for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a guy that, for whatever reason, during the season, I can't flip that switch. Even when the Browns were 1-6, and I knew that we were on to the draft, my brain won't let me do it. But that's how I start my draft process. As soon as the offseason hits, I dive into the Senior Bowl guys, and part of that's like poverty mentality, because we haven't had a first round pick for years, so these are usually the guys on our menu. But this is just my process. So I love the Senior Bowl. I love the competition. I love the fact that this is the best job interview these guys are going to get. They're going to get to come in, have meetings with NFL coaches, and get best on best. You know what I mean? Guys looking for competition. If you just look at last year when Quinyon Mitchell called out Roman Wilson for one-on-one drills, stuff like that, you get to see who wants the smoke. You know what I mean? So I love the Senior Bowl, and I'm pumped to talk about it with you.
Dude, I'm so excited. I was so excited when they fixed the one silly thing about it, and I get it because it's called the Senior Bowl, but once they started letting underclassmen, when they let the juniors and the redshirt sophomores and the people that are draft eligible be able to come too, I think that was a really big deal. And like Jim Nagy has done a phenomenal job since he's took over running that. There's a really awesome interview with Jim Nagy on the NFL Stock Exchange podcast that just dropped yesterday. Or depending on when you're watching this, it dropped on Thursday, so it's out there now. I do highly suggest you go check that out. I thought it was a really, really nice 30 minutes, and he name dropped some of my guys in there, including Upton Stout, the nickel corner safety from Western Kentucky. So I was really excited about that. For me, man, you talk about the poverty mentality. I also like to kind of shift it to the underdog mentality of these small school kids. Like, goodness, I love that aspect of it. And we've got the accepted invite lists. All of the rosters are not completely announced. We're not sure. There's been some names left off some of these lists and things. So as we record this, there may have been some changes since then. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there, that there has been a lot of weird stuff kind of happening with the rosters right now. So just in case you guys are watching this and some things have changed. So let's start with a conversation I heard. I'll piggyback off the NFL Stock Exchange. It was Todd McShay's podcast. They were talking about if quarterback 3 in this class is going to get decided down in Mobile. And I kind of feel like there's a lot on the line for some of these quarterbacks, and I'll touch on Jackson Dart in my opinions on him in just a second. That's not the word I was trying to use. In just a second here. And but if you want to touch on that or anything about the quarterbacks, or any overall thoughts about it, as we kind of will start there with the quarterback 3 conversation.
Well, quarterback 3, if you're looking at the Senior Bowl, you're looking at Jalen Milroe and you're looking at Jackson Dart. And these guys are both going to be down there. I think it's a huge opportunity. And you bring up the underclassmen thing, that applies to Milroe. Dart's been around. Dart is getting a lot of smoke recently. Like over the last week and a half, his name's been getting drummed up a lot. A lot of people are starting to think highly of him. I actually watched my first Jackson Dart tape today when I got home from work. And you do see traits. You see some of the things that people are getting enamored with. I think a lot of people that are more skeptical, have watched more and seen his body of work and seen the inconsistencies that lead you, to kind of pull you away from him being a top tier guy. But this is someone, and this is a quarterback starved draft. So if you got a pulse and you got a couple traits that coaches can believe in, and you interview well and you go down and you compete well and practice well and do all those things, his name might start to rise. I just think Jalen Milroe's athletic structure, just everything, his genetic makeup of who he is as a player kind of raises his stock, and we talked about this last night on All Eyes on Cleveland. When you look at the NFL Conference Championship and you see that 3 of the 4 quarterbacks are running quarterbacks, that lends itself to Jalen Milroe's stock rising, because you see those traits that you could translate easily to him. But that won't play much of a factor in what looks good this week in Mobile. You're not the pulling the ball down and running for a quarterback is kind of off the table. That's not what you're going to do. You're going to see him go through progressions. You're going to see if he can make all the throws and on time. And these are with guys he doesn't have any reps with. This is a genuine, like, are you ready for this moment? So I'm pumped up to see it. And I do think that out of all the quarterbacks, though, Dart has the most to gain over the practice period.
Just a quick note on the quarterbacks that will be there for everybody who haven't seen the roster. Jalen Milroe from Alabama, obviously. From Lawyer, I don't know. He was just added because Will Howard is not going to be participating in the Senior Bowl after the national championship win. A lot of the Ohio State guys have backed out. So some of the Notre Dame guys, just a much longer season for them. They don't want to participate. But Taylor Elgersma, he's playing for a university in Canada. He is taking Will Howard's spot. And I'll tell you this, I have not watched very much of him. Can't find much on him. But what I have found on him is that dude's got a bazooka. Like, that dude will just chuck that thing the length of a football field. So I'm very intrigued by something like that. Taylor how do you say his last name? The Louisville quarterback. Is it Show?
I believe it's Show, yes.
Tyler Show, the Louisville quarterback. Seth Hennigan, the Memphis quarterback. Riley Leonard. I don't think Riley Leonard's participating now, but him and Will Howard had accepted invites. Jackson Dart, and then one of my favorites, Dylan Gabriel's on that roster as well. So from the Oregon quarterback. So here's my thing. I've been a known, it's a documented hater of Jackson Dart, the Ole Miss quarterback. So, like, I have him at quarterback 7. I've just had some major concerns. I understand the toolsy side of it. And if you think you can work with those tools, I get it, because he is a good athlete. He does have a good arm. Like, he's a better athlete than you think he is, too. It's like a little bit kind of me, you and Randy Gurzy love to use the term the sneaky athlete. And he is. He is by definition a sneaky athlete. One of the biggest issues I have that he can really make me feel better about is he comes from that Lane Kiffin offense at Ole Miss, a very simplified handheld. Like I always say, like, you kind of hold the quarterback's hand as you cross the road. You give him a lot of easy answers. I haven't seen Dart go through progressions very much. I see a lot of easy first read, get the ball out. He does that well, which one would argue, at least early on in a Kevin Stefanski offense, that's all you may be asked to do. And that's fair if that you come to that. I understand that. I'm concerned about his processor, actually reading defenses, actually going through progressions. I just didn't see a ton of that, which part of that is just by design. But the question is, was Lane doing that because Dart couldn't do it, or was he doing it because
that's how Lane rolls?
Exactly. And
Lane spoon feeds people.
Which is, I mean, your head coach, it's all about wins and losses, and Lane's just trying to do whatever it is, to win.
Yeah, control the variables.
Right. And so what Dart can do for me is go out there and pick up an offense, because you got to pick up an offense in a matter of hours. You get 3 days. I heard, I've heard other people talk about, like, I want to see the progression from day 1 to day 2 to day 3 as you get more reps in there and things like that. If Dart goes out there and looks incredibly comfortable in this offense, I'm going to have to reconsider where I've got him, because I'm going to have to say, well, his hand was not, because they're not going to hold his hand in Mobile. Like, that's not what you're doing. You're out, like you said, it's a big, massive job interview down there. If Dart can come out there and look comfortable and go through progressions, go through reads, and do some things like that and pick up that offense, I'm going to have another conversation about him. Like, I don't know that I'm not going to go from quarterback. He's currently quarterback 7, and I think I might be hating on him a little bit, but he's not going to go from 7 to 1 and jump Cam Ward. But will I bump him up to 5, 4, somewhere in there because he has better tools than my quarterbacks 4, 5, and 6? Yeah, he might be able to if he shows me some of those things. I'm not going to throw away multiple years of tape because of one Senior Bowl, but I think in and of itself, you said this, Jackson Dart has the most to gain in Mobile. And I love Jalen Milroe. I want to see Milroe look good too, but Dart is such a polarizing prospect. If he goes out there and he just looks comfortable and good and slings the rock around, I'm going to have to move him up.
Yeah, you're only as good as the information you've been given, and you can't fault the kid for it's like you blaming someone because they didn't beat anybody. Well, you can only play on your schedule. He can only operate the offense he's been given. He'll have an opportunity to kind of show that he can expand on that. But to touch on that from a Browns angle, Tommy Rees took the podium yesterday, and he said the characteristic he wants most in the quarterback is a high-level problem solver. It's exactly what you're talking about, processing. Disseminating all that information from pre to post snap and making the right decision, coming up with answers. And he really didn't have to do too much of that at Ole Miss. So kind of putting him in a different environment, dropping him in and seeing how he works with all new receivers will be interesting.
Selfishly, I want Dylan Gabriel to tear it up because that's quarterback 4 for me, and he's behind. I have Milroe at 3, and I have Milroe at 3 just because those tools are insane. Yeah. And like you said, you're not worried about. We know he can run. He hit like 22 miles an hour or something stupid this year on a 70-yard touchdown run. Like, we know he can run. Go out there and show us you can throw the ball. But yeah, so let's move on. We'll go into the offensive side of the ball. Let's talk about some offensive linemen.
Okay, let's go.
So I'll give you the floor, man. We'll just kind of go back and forth talking about some of these offensive linemen. So just, I'll give you the floor wherever you want to start.
I mean, probably Josh Connerly, probably the first place we want to start here.
He's accepted 2 for me, just so we're clear.
He accepted the invite. He'll be there. He is on the national line. The national line, by the way, the guys, they're going to be like, and I didn't write all their names down, but the guys that I'm paying attention to. Josh Connerly, Marcus Mbow, Wyatt Millam, Ariante Irsay, Gray Zabel from North Dakota State. When we talk about these guys that come from smaller schools, and that's a conveyor belt of offensive linemen. They'll give you 1 a year. You know what I mean? Yep. That's solid, man. If you look at that group, that group's going to be a ton of fun. And just to juxtapose that, I kind of look at the D-line because you think, okay, this is the national team, this is the American team. Well, the national team practices against the national team. They won't see the American team until the actual Senior Bowl, which means way less to me than the practices do.
Yeah.
But you're going to get to see Josh Connerly go up against Ty Robinson, Josh Farmer, and then the interior guys are going to get a taste of Yahya Black from Iowa. You know what I mean? So there's just going to be a ton of good competition right there. But if I just look at that, man, I think Connerly, Irsay, and Millam, Mbow, those are first, second round dudes that are going to be in Mobile. I don't know where Zabel will slot in for a lot of people, but he can make a lot of money this week. You know what I mean? By showing he belongs, and he's going to get those opportunities to go one-on-one with these guys. So I'm very impressed of what the way the national line stacks up. The American line's it's a step down for me. You got Emory Jones, Jonas Savanaia, and Armin Mbow from Missouri. And I apologize for not telling you guys the schools these guys are from. My brain doesn't work like that. But top tier talent, man. I mean, we're talking about a ton of first, second rounders that are going to be displaying, what they can do in Mobile. Connerly probably is the best athlete I've seen at tackle in college football, and Josh Simmons, obviously not going to be there, hurt. But he's OT1 for a lot of people, even with being hurt, but we're talking about guys who are going to be able to make an immediate impact for their team. I think Josh Connerly's got to be at the top of the list.
Connerly, that's what I was going to say. If you look at like my scouting notes for Connerly, that's in bold at the top. I think he's the best athlete at tackle. And I know there's some conversation about does he have enough power and a strong enough base to be kind of a tackle, or does he need to go inside? Does he need help? I think this goes a long way in that. But another guy, since you kind of talked about Connerly a little bit, I don't want to go too much. Wyatt Milam, whatever. I've been saying Milam, so if that's wrong, I'm so sorry. Somebody called Marcus Mbo, just pronounced it Bo. I heard today. Someone just said Bo, and I'm like, so now like I can't wait until the Senior Bowl because we'll get that. They'll people will start announcing it and stuff like that. And you just don't get offensive lineman pronunciation very much on
especially good ones, because they don't ever have penalties called on them, and that's not how you know of them.
You're not like, hey, did you see Wyatt Milam over there doing shit? But whatever. So the left tackle out of West Virginia, I've got him tackle 3, and there is a lot of guard talk. He's got shorter arms. He's kind of a little bit lean. He plays kind of upright. So there's some concerns with him there. But you and Brad were talking about it on All Eyes on Click. That is a bad son of a gun. Dude. He is like, he went to the, I as a Browns guy, this is the comparison to really get my point across when I'm talking about a player like this. He went to the Wyatt Teller school of mauling people like that. And I think he's a good athlete. I mean, he's got some length issues, some pad levels and some things like that, but like, he does a really good job moving in space. And if he can stand up against some of these speed rushers, because that's what you got concerned about, these twitched up, explosive speed rushers in these one-on-one situations, him and Connerly, that's going to be, Connerly's a better athlete than Milam is, but you get my point. Like, I really want to see him against some of these twitchy speed up edge rush, because this is a heck of a defensive line class, interior, exterior, edge rushers and defensive tackles. It's loaded. So you're going to get some opportunities on these one-on-ones. I want to see those guys show that they're tackles, because I think they're tackles. I full-heartedly think they're tackles. I want to see that. I want to be able to kind of experience that. But yeah, you talked about the small guys. I also have one sleeper. I'll give it to you first. Is there anybody on the offensive line that maybe is a little bit under talked about at a smaller school, or somebody in particular that you think is somebody that's kind of that you're?
Well, I was hoping it was going to be Charles Grant from William & Mary.
Yeah.
But his name, because he was listed as the accepted invite, but when they announced offensive lines, he wasn't on either of the teams. I'm hoping that's an oversight. I was really looking forward to seeing him out there and seeing, because when I say huge, I mean, we're DeJuan Jones big, like he's that type of human, They don't make a lot of those guys. And if you have movement skills and you can do some damage at the next level. And from William & Mary, when you watch his tape, it ain't fair.
No, it's not.
I need to see you up against some other guys that are going to be playing on Sundays. So I was super hoping to see him. I'm hoping that's an oversight and we get to see him at the Senior Bowl.
So I'll real quick, I'll give you 2 guys that I like that are kind of day 3 guys. Don't sleep on Jack Nelson, the left tackle from Wisconsin. If there's a guy you want to if you're like, man, I have time to get one more offensive lineman in before the Senior Bowl and watch it, I would watch him. He should not be able to move like that at that size. That's all I'm at. Like, he's like, if there's ever a school that produces offensive line, he's like 6'7", 320. And you're like, what you doing? What you doing right there, being that size and everything? It's like, it's a very interesting player. He's kind of flying under the radar. I think he's a really good athlete. I'm really excited to him. But if I had to pick one small school guy on the interior, it's Clay Webb, the guard from Jacksonville State. That's a guy right there that I like a ton. A good mover. Needs a little bit more power. I would like to see some more power and things from him. That's kind of the issues I've got. But again, Jacksonville State, okay, now show me what you can do against a lot of defensive talent. So very excited about that.
I want to touch on something before we jump off offensive line. And you're talking about Wyatt here, okay? Mm-hmm. It's Groundhog Day. We went through this with Taliese Fuunga. The exact same thing, the exact same type of player to me.
Same
all
guy.
This course, like, well, his arms aren't long enough. How'd that work out? You know what I mean? Like, let these guys fell inward.
And what's really funny too is like you talk about Mimbu and from Missouri and Mbao from Purdue, all the guys that are going to be down there except for Milam and Josh Connerly are right tackles. There's only a couple in Jack Nelson. There's only a few of them that are natural left tackles, and so I'm really excited to see those guys move over because both Mbao and Mimbu I think can play left tackle, and I know that'll give PTSD to Browns fans, and they don't want to hear that, but but that's something that's going to be interesting. Let's jump on the wide receivers and tight ends. We'll talk about some of these guys. So I'll give it to you first. Oh, there's a guy that accepted an invite that's probably not going to be there. From LSU.
So they did the same thing with National and American. I kind of split them up between the two. They've announced those already. I'm going to be eyeing the American wide receivers. My crush so far during this whole process has been Jack Batch.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a sucker. I'm a sucker for physical. I'm a sucker for guys who do dirty work and not conventional. If you look at him, you're like, oh, not prototypical. And he's going to do most of his work in the slot at the next level, I believe. Super fast feet, though, and short area quickness. And he doesn't have breakaway speed, but I keep reverting back to these Puka Nacua types when I see him, and it's like, this dude just makes plays, man. The dude just makes plays. He led LSU in receptions when he was there, and Malik Neighbors was on that team. Brian Thomas was on that team. Like, wherever this kid's been, he's made plays. And I just, went to TCU, and he shared the field with Savion Williams, and Williams would probably go in front of him. He has more tools. He can do more damage on the outside. But I just love the grittiness of Jack Betch. And then when I look at like a matchup that I'm looking forward to, it's my guy versus your guy. It's going to be Jack Betch versus Upton Stout. They're both teamed up on the American side. So that's going to be my key matchup that I'm zoomed in on.
And Upton Stout, that dude wants to out physical you at defensive back, and Besh knows exactly how to do that. So it's really good. I think the guy that I'm high on, and some other people are high on, but the guy I really want to look, I'm very much looking forward to Eli Mooreman, the Stanford wide receiver. You're talking about a guy that to say that the quarterback play was shaky at best at Stanford this year would probably be an understatement. You look at the drop in production, and I say, just go watch it. It wasn't Io Manor. Like, he's not getting open or dropping a bunch of passes or just like doing things that where it's like, oh, it's his fault. You're seeing some quarterback issues when it talks about the production. This is a big dude that has this short area explosiveness and quickness that really kind of shocks you, because you see a guy like that. And I thought what was really cool, Kyle Krabs over at the 33rd team, this point that he kind of made about him, I think really articulates why I like him so much. He said he has surprisingly slippery body control and short area quickness for a bigger wide receiver. And he's got vertical speed. It's long speed. So it's not, like I said, the short area quickness is there, but then he's got to build it up a little bit to get to the real wrong speed. But man, is he a physical, like in your face, and he's an in your face MFer is what he is. And he will block you into the sideline. Like, you talk about a Kevin Stefanski wide receiver in the wide zone. That's Eli Mooreman, man. He wants to Wyatt Milam you, dude. He wants to put you in the dirt on the outside. He can block linebackers. I'm good with that. Cracking down, blocking linebackers, bigger physical guys. He doesn't have a problem with that. And he's slippery, good body control. Didn't run a ton of routes. So, like, it's kind of a little bit of a Cedric Tillman situation where he's going to need some time to diversify that route tree because it's just not what you would want it to be. But, man, there's a lot to like there from Eli Mooreman from Stanford.
He's also on the American side, along with Jalen Royals. Those are three receivers that I'll be watching on the American side. The national side, you got Pat Bryant from Illinois, Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State. I'm excited to watch Jaden Higgins get down, and Tez Johnson, Xavier Restrepo. Like, they're going to be a little bit of speed there too. So that's the national side. Yeah, the DBs that they're going to kind of match up with. The one I want to see is Jaden Higgins versus Jacob Parrish. I'm hoping we get some reps there. That's something I want to see on during the practices. I will say this isn't we're in a weird age because there's no bad years for wide receivers, but this isn't a stellar year for wide receivers.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be a couple guys at the front end of the first round. There's kind of a little bit of a gap. There's so much value to be had between rounds 2 and 4. You know what I mean? And I think you're going to see that represented well in Mobile, like those level of receivers.
Yeah, there is not a lot of superstar power here, but if you're in the 3rd round, 4th round, I think you can get a really good player. And just to touch on it, you talk about a guy that goes out and makes plays. That's what Xavier Restrepo does, the Miami, Florida wide receiver. Like, he just catches absolutely everything. So if you're like, hey man, I'd like to slot. He's a slot receiver. If you want a slot that catches everything, okay, that's cool. That's all he is. Like, no big deal. So we'll transition here to defensive back a little bit. You touched a little bit on Jacob Parrish. I like Jacob Parrish too, the Kansas State defensive back. Azari, man, do you have his pronunciation at handy?
Azareth Thomas.
There we go. The defensive back from Florida State. I like him a ton, man.
Mm-hmm. He's on my list.
Yeah, he's probably the biggest on the defensive back list. Him and Upton Stout, because I'm a big Upton Stout. The physicality. He played nickel corner, loves to tackle. But Thomas is on that list. I'm really high on him. I'm really excited to see what he kind of does in these one-on-ones. The one-on-ones are always slanted to the wide receiver. Like, you're going to see a lot of really good defensive backs get cooked, and it's made that way. But last year, Quinyon Mitchell was winning those one-on-ones. And I'm very curious to see if any of these defensive backs can be the Quinyon Mitchell, because you've seen that work out. Quinyon Mitchell's had a heck of a year for Philly. And I think he's got a chance, man. I think he's got a chance to really win some one-on-one reps and kind of catch some attention.
You touched on a very interesting thing that people need to understand when you're watching these reps. There are certain drills that are set up for one position or the other. If you see a DB lock a receiver down in open field, because they have the entire field open to them. There's not like boundaries there. There's not a slot next to them. And so you have all way goes, you know what I mean? So if you can play sticky man against that, you can play sticky man against anything. And same thing with like linebackers. When linebackers come to the Senior Bowl, like, what can you really prove?
Especially in coverage.
Yeah, that's it. Because they're not running Oklahoma drills to see how stout you are against the run. You know what I mean? You're gonna have to be fluid in your movements, and there's just not a lot of winning there. Is what way I would put it. I would say Trey Amos is a guy from Ole Miss. I'll be keyed in on the defensive back room. That's a guy that I'm going to be paying a lot of attention to. We do got a little bit of a wee-woo, though, because Jim Nagy just dropped some more people.
Oh.
He listed linebackers and edge together. So we got some guys that I didn't think were going to get listed. So Jared Ivey from Ole Miss. Shamar James, linebacker out of Florida. He made the cut. Kyle Kennard, South Carolina.
I love Kyle.
We got Nick Scowerton, A&M. Princely, I will never try to pronounce your last name, sir, from Ole Miss.
Give me a minute and I'll try it.
Okay. Dude, I kept doing it. My tongue kept betraying me. My guy's got a lot of N's and M's in there, which should be cool because I do myself, but I couldn't do it. Shamar Stewart, he made the cut as well. So I'm glad they dropped some because there were some names left off the defensive line. They just split them up to edge, which is good because these offensive tackles are going to need some competition, and they're still announcing. So that right there was the American edge and linebackers.
You ready?
Yeah.
I got it. Princely Umanmielen.
Umanmielen.
Yeah.
He's got to do something. He's got to do something for me to remember that.
He's an older one, though. He'll be 23 on draft night. So that's kind of like, there's a lot of these guys. I'm very interested to see how Andrew Berry's age guardrails go in the beginning. Because like Trey Amos is older too. The corner from, and these Ole Miss has some defensive players in this. Like, you think of Lane Kiffin and Jackson Dart and what they did, that offense did, but my goodness, are they dropping some talent in on the defensive side of the ball. Let's go to the defensive line. Let's talk a little bit about some defensive linemen. This was a kind of a Pete Smith special, sort of. Me and him had this conversation a few months back. The first guy I'm looking at, I don't know if you just said which side he's going to be at, but TJ Sanders. Yeah, TJ Sanders, the defensive tackle from South Carolina. Do you have that?
Yeah, he's on the American D line with Alfred Collins, Shamar Turner, and Deion Walker.
Oh, I like that. Here's the thing about TJ Sanders, man. That dude is relentless. Like, that motor and that effort and what you're going to get. And, this was a guy that was on a defensive line that had a lot of other talent, including a guy named Tonka Hemingway, which is, I just want him on the all name team.
Yeah.
That's my favorite. But Pete Smith and I had this conversation before where he's like, that's a Jim Schwartz defensive tackle. I'm very, very curious to see what he can do. Walter Nolan, I like a ton. He's kind of older. Omar Norman Lott, the defensive tackle from Tennessee, is really a lot of fun as well. My goodness, I just keep looking at this list and I'm like, this is a ridiculous defensive line group at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I haven't seen Walter Nolan's name officially announced on a team. I've seen he got the accepted invite, and I'll be very disappointed if we do not get to see him in Mobile, because that is someone he was a ton of fun to watch. My man, Ty Robinson from Nebraska. I mean, just 6'5", 271, and just relentless, just smashes pockets. You know what I mean? He plays like it's just brute squad ball. And I want to see and 271 in the NFL. That's not hefty by any means, but it's the way that he plays. I just want to see if they can stand up to it. You know what I mean? He's an enforcer out there. Alfred Collins from Texas is another one. A lot of meat there. And the NFL's moved away from it in recent years. You don't see these, but then you see Tavondre Sweat, who had there's a lot of mixed emotions about him last year in the draft cycle. And, he came in, didn't weigh in. So there was just a lot of weirdness with him, but he played pretty well once he got in the NFL. Like he actually acquitted himself well when he got there. I want to see what Alfred Collins can do. But overall, like you said, man, this is the war in the trenches in Mobile. That's going to be where the eyes are, in my opinion. I think that's going to be the marquee matchups right there. Tons of talent on both sides. We're talking a ton of first and second rounders. But I do agree. I think TJ Sanders is a name that not a lot of people know. That South Carolina defense was nasty.
Nasty, man.
Nasty. And it's all the way to the safeties. You know what I mean? Like, they just extended Shane Beamer today, by the way. So they're going to keep that rolling down in Columbia. But I think TJ Sanders will be a name that people start to talk about after this.
So a guy that I don't have a confirmed age on him. I've been looking for it for a while, so I'm not sure. And he's only kind of really been a one-way breakout kind of guy. But Donovan Ezeraku, the edge rusher from Boston College, who had 16 and a half sacks this year, he's kind of a smaller, like 240 guy. So he's kind of like a specialized like pass rusher who you might not be playing all the time. If they don't go like Abdul Carter or something like that, and they wait a little bit later and they look for just like a pass rush specialist, it's a very intriguing kind of guy. He had 2 sacks last year. The year before he had 8.5. So it's not been like a crazy. He's a fourth year senior. So I'm not sure, again, on his age. He's probably 22, somewhere in that range. But that's somebody that I think is really interesting. Tight end. It's Harold Fannin, right? Like, it's Harold Fannin Jr., the tight end from Bowling Green that you're absolutely watching, because this dude was the entire offense for Bowling Green, and they could not do shit about it. Nobody in the MAC had any chance of stopping Harold Fannin. And so now he gets that opportunity to, again, this is why I love the Senior Bowl. These small school guys getting the opportunity to come in here and be like, all right, I'm going against Upton Stout, who will get in your face and get physical. Like, I'm going against Azari Thomas, who is not going to be pushed around. He's undersized. He's under 240 pounds. Harold Fannin is. So he's a little bit smaller. I want to see how he blocks, because he blocked well in the MAC. He blocked very well in the MAC. But I want to see that stuff. He's definitely the eye candy at tight end that I'm watching next week.
He's such a specialized player because 6'3", 230. He's not your typical. He's not going to be 11 personnel inline guy. But we're in a league now where you're just like looking for dudes that can present problems and mismatches and just the versatility that he could afford, the creativity he could afford an offensive coordinator for you to have a tight end, quote unquote, that can line up at running back, that you can, H back in motion, put him out as a big slot, and he's just, to me, if you're a team like the Browns and you're going to lean back into Kevin Stefanski's wheelhouse and you're going to run an uptick at 12 personnel, and you've already got your 11 personnel inline guy in David Njoku, supplementing him with the equivalent of another Isaiah Likely, you know what I mean? If you look at, it's kind of the same thing. He's a better athlete. I don't go on a ledge here. He's too versatile. His route tree's full. His concentration in traffic. Like when you watch those plays, man, like he's a natural born playmaker. Now he might not test great. He's not twitchy,
no,
but he's just a phenomenal football player, man. He understands spatial awareness, and I just think there's so much you could do with him. There's a lot of creativity there. But this Senior Bowl tight end class also offers the traditional. You could go Gunnar Helm. You could go guy, 6'5", 255, and get your quarterback a security blanket. And someone who can be dangerous up the seams. And I think he's ready right away. I think Gunnar Helm's that's almost like a plug and play. Like almost like a Todd Heap to me. You know what I mean? And you watch he's got decent route versatility, but he understands how to be an outlet. He understands voids, you know what I mean? And how to occupy him and be a just quarterback friendly type tight end. Not going to wow you. He's not going to put up crazy numbers, but like at the end of the day, 6'5", 255 can line up. He's a willing guy to block. All these tight ends, they come in and it's always a work in progress as far as the blocking aspect. Mason Taylor, the LSU tight end,
I like
similar size, similar frame, NFL bloodlines. If you were to block that out and just grade him on the player that he is, not twitchy, but understands space. He's a great hands catcher. Good catch radius. He's an upfield turner. He's not a guy who catches it and makes a lateral move. I mean, he's going to turn north and just get whatever's there. More of a prototypical guy. But say you can't get Harold Fannin. Say Harold Fannin is what you're looking for. You're looking for the pass catching tight end to supplement what you have if you already have an 11 personnel inline guy. Elijah Arroyo. That'd be the guy I would look at. That dude is untapped potential. And he only had 1 year production, which scares the shit out of people. And I get that. A decent freshman year. He only had like 5 or 6 catches, but his sophomore year, he tore an ACL 4 games in, misses a whole season, misses the first 7 games of his next year. Then Cam Ward comes to Miami, and all of a sudden you get to see the athlete that Elijah Arroyo is. Like he's slightly undersized. He's 240, 6'4", 240, but it's what he does after the catch gives you a guide that you can use in the screen game. He's vertical up the seams, and he has breakaway speed, which is something I didn't see any of the other tight ends that I scouted for the Senior Bowl. Not even Fannin. Yeah. Fannin doesn't have breakaway speed.
No,
he's not. He's not going to just get run down immediately, but Arroyo can literally pull away from people. So it's a pretty good class, and this isn't a giant tight end class altogether. You know what I mean? Like you got the 2 guys at the top who aren't at the Senior Bowl: Tyler Warren, Colson Loveland. Those are 1 and 2. Those are first round guys. Fannin probably won't go to the second round. But I think in rounds 2 and 3, you're going to get to see some of these guys that are in Mobile that are going to be key contributors for teams, man. This is a good class.
Don't forget about if you want a blocker, Jackson Hollis from Georgia Tech. That dude will block the heck out of you. That's your blocking tight end. All right, linebacker. That's where we're at now, isn't it? Yeah. We're at linebacker. That's it. Look at us.
We didn't do running backs.
Oh crap! All right, let's do linebackers and we'll get to running backs. Glad you mentioned that.
It's gonna be quick for me.
I didn't see his name until just now because, like you said, they put the edge and linebackers, some of those guys together. David Walker, the Central Arkansas pass rusher. That dude's been a menace. and so he's definitely. I got to bring up his numbers real quick because I forgot about it. I forgot he was playing, but in this game because I was looking at the list and he wasn't there. But David Walker played for Central Arkansas, and I can't for whatever reason get his. He had 12 sacks this year, I believe. But yeah, he had 12 sacks this year. But a very, very, very kind of like good athlete, but get in your face, kind of like unique, kind of well balanced pass rusher that I'm very excited to see what he can do there. But outside of that, the linebacker, Jeffrey Bassa, the linebacker from Oregon, is a guy that I've mocked to the Browns quite a few times. Good athlete. Carson Schlesinger, that's where the money is. Carson Schlesinger, the linebacker from UCLA. I'll let you talk on him, but that's definitely where the money is in terms of the guys that'll be there.
How do they hide him on special teams this whole time, and then he plays 1 year, and it's like this dude does everything.
Yeah,
he's everywhere at all times. He's omnipotent on the field. He doesn't miss tackles. And I don't know how they had him buried. I don't know what he did to someone on the coaching staff for him not to get that playing time. But it's obvious when you watch him play, this is a dude. This is there, and linebackers obviously devalued over time. And it doesn't. But if this dude if this style of player existed in 2010, this dude's a first-round pick.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like he's that style of player. Someone's going to get a value. Someone's going to get a however long he wants to play starter. Like that's what when I look at him, I just don't. There's got to be something. Like how did you not see the field before this? Because it just burst off the screen when you watch it, And the first time I heard someone really glow about him was Kyle Krabs, and then I had to immediately go watch him. Like, hold on, I got to pronounce your name, Schlesinger. Yep. Like that's not easy for me. This is a little awkward, but then you start seeing him play. It's like, yeah, I'll remember. I'll remember to pronounce your name correctly, sir. Shamar James out of Florida is another guy that I'm interested to see. Super athlete. I want to see how he stacks up because that's what this is. This being a linebacker at the Senior Bowl is can you cover?
Yep.
And that's what this is going to come down to. So those are the guys I'm looking to. But like Carson Schlesinger, he's the main event.
So running back, we'll finish the show here over at running back. I know one of the guys you want to talk about, so I won't bring him up. I'll leave him for you to talk about. But my guy is RJ Harvey, the Central Florida running back. I've kind of moved him up into my top 100 now. Insanely productive at Central Florida. Stayed at Central Florida to set records there. Made sure like he stayed. Loyalty to that program was something that he articulated in that sort of thing. Not saying that people that transfer aren't loyal, but you get my point. That was just a very big selling point for him. Super explosive. Doesn't have elite top speed. He'll probably run in the 4.4s. Like, I mean, isn't that hilarious when you're like, you don't have elite top speed, but you have 4.4 speed. And that's just kind of where these running backs and athletes are in the year 2025. But he's going to get there. You're going to look at him at 5'9". You're going to be like, he's a little bit smaller in terms of stature, similar to somebody you want to talk about, and similar to Ashton Genty, who's smaller in stature than people think he is.
Yeah, he's tiny.
But RJ Harvey will run you over if you try to arm tackle him. I think really good in space, really good ladder. I think I called him a jump cut merchant or something like that. He does a really good change of direction to make you miss in the open field. Just doesn't have elite speed, smaller guy. Sometimes he can. I don't want him in third and short. Yes, he can run people over in open field, but I'm not going to power run him up the middle. I think he could be a really good 1B for you. But that's a guy. I just want to see RJ Harvey with a little step up in competition. He's probably one of my favorite.
He forced a ton of missed tackles. I mean,
many.
If you watch the tape, it's just dudes can't tackle him. The only reason his age kind of took him out of the article I was writing. But yeah, dude, he's a dude. This class is stacked with dudes though. The breakaway speed shit's just overblown. Most running backs in their life won't have a 60, 70 yard run. Like it's just like it's the life, but if you're constantly breaking off 15-yard explosives, like I think that you're doing your job, and I think this draft has a ton of those guys. The guy I think you're alluding to is probably Ollie Gordon III. Ollie Gordon III had a precipitous fall off from his crazy sophomore year to his junior year. And he still ran for 946 yards. It wasn't like he was a bum, but it wasn't what he had done the year prior. Had he been able to come out the year prior, he's a no worse than RB3, probably RB2. He'd been right up there. But it's his size, man. It's a big dude, 6'2" and change, 220, and it looks long. When you watch him, it just looks long. He's got long legs. He's not a burner by any means, but he's a timing runner. What was missing from his junior tape was those jump cuts. He was constantly creating his own running lanes in sophomore year, where he'd get in the hole and jump and create this whole new lane and just out angle people, and that was missing. But he has a ton to gain, because when you look at his junior year where he disappointed, it starts off around the last day of June. He gets a DUI, kind of set the table for a fall off of a season. In my opinion, he looked heavier. He looked heavier on tape than he did as a sophomore. Now, which is natural, he's only 20 years old. This is a young man still. But if he shows up to Mobile and tip top and can show out in pass pro, he could do a lot for his reputation, and be someone who maybe sneaks in the back end of day 2, if he shows the very best version of himself and reminds scouts of what 2023 was like, but that's a hard task. I'm gonna go with another young guy though, Damian Martinez, Miami. I'm infatuated with big power backs who have short area speed and hit explosives and force business decisions. And if you look at Iowa's Caleb Johnson, I think that's a lot of Browns fans right now are enamored. His draft stock might be too rich for the Browns blood. They might not be able to spend a high enough pick to get a Caleb Johnson. But if you can't get Caleb Johnson, give me Damian Martinez, 6 foot 220, punishing between the tackles. But like most running backs, when they're the workhorse at their college, they got to show up in pass pro when they come to these events, because we talk same thing with linebackers. They're not being really graded on how you run, because you're not running through tackles really, during practice. But can you set in pass pro? Can you catch the ball in the backfield? Can you look fluid doing so? Those are the things he has to do, because I have no doubt right now he's a first and second down back right now. Can you be a third down back? Can you increase your value? He's the guy I'm looking for that. But let's go and talk about the elephant in the room, and that's Cam Skattebo. Cam Skattebo it's like a cult hero. You know what I mean? Like this dude is John McCain at the Nakatomi Plaza on Christmas Eve. He just dies hard. Like he's so much fun to watch. They list him at 5'10". I'm not going to be surprised when he's 5'9", 210 pounds. But you get all the 210. He ain't holding none of it back. You know what I mean? Like that dude's full throttle. I said it last night. He runs like someone who stole his bicycle. Like just angry at everything all around him. But it's not his running that I'm going to be focused in on. I think that dude can be a third down back day 1 in the NFL. He catches the ball so nice and he's able to make moves in open field. Doesn't have breakaway speed. He's not going to test crazy.
No. He
makes plays, man. He makes plays. And we're talking about someone who wants to set in pass pro. He doesn't want to set in pass pro. He wants to decapitate people in pass pro. And I need him to pull that back, because when you watch him in pass pro, he literally dips his head to launch into people. That ain't going to work in the NFL. You're going to be more disciplined. You're going to have to set yourself. But like he's more than willing to lend his body and lay out for his quarterback. So that's what I'm interested in. I'm interested in seeing how he looks in the receiving aspects and the pass pro aspects. And he's a little bit older because he played 4 years, 0-star recruit, has to go to Sac State, get all the awards in that conference to come to Arizona State and become a cult hero. So he's going to have a lot of eyes on him. And I think fans and stuff are obviously higher on him than the actual NFL will be, just because he's a little older and he's not going to test crazy. But I think he's going to be a playmaker. And I said it to you, he's not here for a long time. He's going to be here for a good time, though. Enjoy Cam Skattebo while we get him.
You'll never question if he gave you 100% on a rep.
Oh, God, no.
At no point are you going to be like, did he try? Did he try out there? One other name, Devin Neal from Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
Really like him. Really good blend of speed, athleticism, and power there. does a really great job. The body control and his ability to start, stop, and get up to top speed and slow and, deaccelerate when he needs to is pretty good. And he's got a really good vision. But that's a guy that has had some issues in pass pro. Like there's some issues there where I'm like not sure. I want to see him go out there and show that he can be a pass protector a little bit more so, because like you said, there's a lot of guys that you're going to look at that, because if you've already got a back that can't block but contributes to a run game, you're trying to find one that can, because you've got to have one on the roster that can do some third down, even if it's just chipping on their way out. So he's another guy I want to see, because I think he runs with enough power that I think he can be a good blocker. Like if some of the technical stuff, like I'm not worried, like, is he strong enough? He's not like 120 pounds soaking wet or, like a really tiny scat back or anything like that. I think he's got it in him. All right. That's it. There you go. 50 minutes, under an hour. Do you got something else?
Yeah, I think we should touch on for Browns fans. Jacques Chazier will be the defensive coordinator, I believe, of the national team. Is that correct? National team. Ex-Browns coach, now Boston College coach, Jordan Thomas, will be coaching the D-line for the American team. And then you have Jeff Anderson, defensive back coach. He'll be for the national team. And Kevin Stefanski will be in attendance for all those who are wondering. But a ton of those assistant coaches will be on the field working with these athletes. So if the Browns are looking for some inside scoops, they'll be able to get them this week.
So there's no other coaches?
Unless I missed one, which I could have. Oh, yeah, my bad. The head coach of the opposite team, Bubba Ventrone. I don't put as much stock into that.
He's the American team head coach. I was like, is he not going to drop that? I got him as American team, yeah. American team head coach. All right, guys, thank you so much. We'll be back, all kinds of shows. OBR, what do we got? Dueling Mock Monday. We'll be back on Monday after a week off for the national championship at 8. All Eyes on Cleveland. All of our other shows. Jeff Lloyd's doing a great job at Browns 3D. 5 days a week, 6 o'clock. Make sure you're checking that out. The React with Pete Smith and Brad Ward continues to crush. Phenomenal show there. What am I forgetting about? Things I Think I Know on Friday nights. And OBR Weekly on Tuesdays. Sam Penix joins me for the mock draft on shows on Monday. Thank you guys so much. Make sure you're subscribed. Hit that thumbs up. Check us out over at theobr.com. And we will see you guys again next time.